Okay. All right. Let's see if we've got sound. All right. There we go. Just getting warmed up, folks. Just getting started. So if you're out there, as always, say hi. Let me know who I'm talking to, where you're from, all that good stuff. If you got questions, get them out as quick as you can. I'm going to give a bit of a channel update tonight and explain why you haven't seen as many videos from me in the last couple of weeks. Some of you already know. I know the members, which I think I'll give away some memberships tonight. But I know my members are aware, and others maybe. But I'll talk about that this evening and let you know what's going on. I'm just waiting for folks to join before I start in. But be sure to say hi and let me know who I'm talking to, and we'll just give it a few for people to join. And that's not a beer; that's root beer. Only it's this kind of root beer. Oh, you can't see it. No, too bad. It's because of the background. I don't know if I like this background, by the way. So if you like the background, let me know. If you don't, I'll turn it off. It's just an experiment. But anyway, glad you're here. Welcome. And again, I'm just kind of getting warmed up here, waiting for folks to join us. We got a few folks in now, and hopefully we'll get a few more here before we get started. And I'm actually going to give away some memberships this evening too, I think. Let us see. Oh, if I remember how to do this. Oh, right there. Look at that. I can do that. I'll just throw 5 out right now. It's an interesting thing with these lives that YouTube's done this, and it's kind of fun to send those out and let some people check out what's going on behind the scenes. So if you get one of those free memberships, cool. It's good for like a month. You get to see what's going on in the back behind the scenes that you wouldn't normally see. So we're just kind of getting ready here to get started. Be sure to drop a line in the chat. Let me know who's here and where you're from. And if you've got questions, put them in the chat right away, because I will always try to answer them in order as quick as I can. So Ed Rose, nice to see you, buddy. Due to recent rains, is wildfire season no longer a threat this year? I would say that wildfire season is no longer a threat, at least not for me. Other areas I can't say, but for the north central Washington area, we got a lot of rain, and I mean a lot of rain, way more than I've seen in the 15 years we've had the property there. So that's awesome, but totally awesome. And nice to see you too. I can't remember the last time I saw you on a live, so it's good to see you here. And again, we're just kind of waiting to see if we pick up a few more folks before I get started. I've got a little bit of news tonight. And again, members are already aware, or if you follow me on Facebook, you're aware, but I'm going to talk about why you haven't seen videos as frequently in the last 2 weeks, although I think I'll be able to correct that now. So bear with me just a couple more minutes here, see who else we can get on. And again, as the banner says, be sure to drop a quick note. Let me know who I'm talking to. I know Ed's here, and Ed, I think you're over on the West Coast, aren't you? Or am I confusing you for another subscriber? Sometimes it gets tough when you start getting, I've got over 12,500 now, so I sometimes get them mixed up. So if I've got you mixed up with somebody else, I apologize. But should be interesting tonight. I think you guys will, I'll definitely try to answer any questions you have, but those that don't know me, well, hopefully you'll get a chance to get to know me a little better tonight. And again, make sure you let me know who I'm talking to. What time have we got? We've got just a few minutes after 5:30. So have a drink, relax, and we'll get started. And, one of the things I was thinking about, if you've ever been to a concert before, the musicians a lot of times will tell the audience, you gotta give me feedback in order to make this really work. Well, that works the same here. So the more questions you ask or the comments you make, the more I'll be able to answer, and the more entertaining this will be. So at least that's my thinking anyway. It's good root beer. Dane Bolster, Southern California, high desert near Big Bear Lake Mountain Resorts. Now, it's interesting because in here I'm seeing your names versus your nickname in YouTube. And I think we've chatted a few times in the comments about your ranch down there. Correct me if I'm wrong. Freddie, nice to see you. Northern Middle Tennessee. You know, I've got family that is from that area. Actually, my grandfather lived in Newmarket, Tennessee for a long time. And my family actually, we came to South Carolina in the 1740s and then moved into the Tennessee area later. And so I've got family from back there, even though I'm on all the way on the other side of the country. So, all right, well, I'm going to get started here. But again, as always, drop a comment in the chat. Let me know who I'm talking to, where you're at, what questions you got. So we're going to get started. And first thing I wanted to kind of bring you up to speed on was why I haven't put out 3 videos a week for the last couple of weeks, maybe even 3. And there's actually a couple reasons. One, my father was not doing well. He's battled prostate cancer for over 20 years. And so we had planned a trip up to see him, but we took a little extra time to try to get up and see him. And it was a good trip, except the other reason why I haven't been putting out as many videos the last couple of weeks. If you've watched my channel at all, you know I have back trouble. And I'm going to talk about that tonight. But in short, I went to a beach that was really rocky, slipped. And I think, not 100% sure, but I think that was the start of what ended up being 2 badly slipped discs. And I was actually using a walker for about a week and a half. I could not walk unassisted. It was pretty bad, folks. But fortunately, things started to heal. I'd walked about 300 miles this year already, trying to get back in shape and build up my back strength. And I think because of that, it helped me heal. And then I had a procedure, a couple steroid injections, and we're doing better. So I can actually walk a little better now. But I haven't been able to get back to the property and get any work done up there because of it. And I am hoping to get back within the next week or 2. So you'll probably notice on the channel, my videos for over the next couple of weeks are probably going to mostly be in my shop, which I can actually walk down to. It's probably 50 yards from the house. Maybe not 50 yards. I guess it's probably 50, 60 feet maybe. But it feels like 50 yards when your back's not working. But so that's just kind of a little heads up for you. And I thought I would tell that story, tell you why my back is the way it is. And I don't talk about these injuries a whole lot on the channel. And quite frankly, because to me, it's not really that important. But I've decided that it's probably a good idea to just explain it a little bit so that you understand me a little better. I think it's fair to say that I think at some point it's probably a good idea. Otherwise, you probably look at the channel and think, why is this guy complaining all the time? So I will tell you it's a Marine Corps injury, but it is not an injury that's all glorious. And I could, give you the Rambo story that caused me to have this injury. It's actually when I got promoted to corporal on the beaches of Morocco in 1989. There were 5 non-commissioned officers that decided I hadn't been promoted well enough. If you know anything about the Marine Corps, the way the Marine Corps likes to promote people back in those days is beat the crap out of them. So in short, so those 5 guys decided to tackle me, and all 5 landed on top of me on the beach on my right shoulder, which actually separated my SC joint and the collarbone, which has never actually been able to get back correct. So it's always partially separated. But that actually injured 2 discs in my neck as well as 7 in my lower back. And the truth is that mostly didn't bother me for a very long time. But as I got older, of course, things started to weaken and the wear and tear, eventually wears them down. And so now I'm in a position where probably have to have some vertebrae fused at some point in the near future. But in the meantime, it's walk, try to get in better shape, which is always painful. And just try to watch what I walk on. No more rocky beaches or sandy beaches, for example. Any kind of uneven ground is bad. So anyway, there you go. There's the story. That is why the videos haven't been coming out as steadily as they normally do. I'm trying to get back on track now. And I should be back on track next week. So Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, my usual days of putting videos out, they should be going out for you. And it might not be as controversial as yesterday's video. I don't know if you've seen that one, but it's definitely stirred up a little bit of a hornet's nest in philosophies, but I think that's healthy. I think it's good to have that. So And as always, if you've got questions, be sure to ask. And anything, I answer any questions. I'll answer anything from what I'm drinking to, where I live, what my life is, whatever. It doesn't matter to me. I'm an open book. But if you want to know about off-grid, solar, sawmilling, building, you name it, I will answer if I can. I'm not going to tell you I know everything. I don't, but I do my best to try to provide the answers I can. For those that don't know me, this is your first time. I've had an off-grid cabin for 15 years, built the solar power setup myself, designed it all, and researched it all and built it all myself, and then upgraded it several times over the years, and it's quite healthy. Let's say now it pretty much provides all the power we need at the cabin, and then a bunch more. So that's how I got into it, and it wasn't a sustainability thing. I think a lot of people get into solar because of that. For me, it wasn't. It's a remote cabin. It would cost me 40 grand to put power in when I built my solar power setup, and it was about $3,500 the initial setup that I built. And I probably still don't have 20 grand in solar, maybe 10 or 15. But so it was much cheaper, and I love the autonomy, the fact that it doesn't matter to me what the power company's doing because I've got nothing to do with them. And I'm very much that way. I'm kind of a freedom loving kind of libertarian view. If you're interested about me, that's who I am. So I don't do it because I'm trying to save the planet. Not that I don't think saving the planet's a good idea. I do it because I just want the autonomy. I want to be left alone in my cabin in the woods with my power. So there you go. You've just got a whole earful already, haven't you? But so as far as the channel goes, again, you ask the questions, we'll really get a dialogue going. So don't be shy. Ask away. It doesn't matter to me what you ask. But as far as the channel goes, I do have more videos coming out. And again, they should be back to my 3-a-week schedule. That's my plan. My next video will actually be on cabin building. And I'm going to be driving a little bit more in that direction, I think, in the near future, because I've got projects to do. Now, I did say in a previous video that I would be starting a new D-log cabin build. Well, I do plan on trying to start that still, but due to my injury, we'll see how much I get done. I've still got to get a couple big logs out, and I'm not sure that I can handle that 23-pound chainsaw right now. So unless I get Michael Wilson or somebody up here or a local buddy of mine to fall some trees, I'm not sure I'll get started on that D-log build this fall. I'm hoping to still. I'm always the optimist. But if I don't, well, there'll be lots of other work I still have to do anyway. I've got lots of sawmilling to do, so there will be more sawmilling videos for those that are into the sawmilling side of things. And I've got to work on that back room. So the power room, essentially what it is now, the back room of the cabin, I've really got to try to get that finished and get my wiring sorted out. The wiring at the cabin has been an abysmal mess since 2013, frankly. And all of that, honestly, is part of life, frankly. And if you are a working person, you know the deal, right? If you work 50, 60 hours a week in some cases, it's hard to get back and finish projects. And I've had friends tell me, well, you should always do it right the first time. And I kind of laugh at them and I say, then it wouldn't have been done. Because if I had to take the time to try and do everything the way it should have been done to get it done the permanent way, then I wouldn't have had time to do it. A lot of times I was in a mad panic trying to, take that last hour to run power, and no excuses. It's just the way it is, right? But guess what? It's worked for 15 years. So we're going to try to clean it up now, though. All right, Ed, all he ever really wanted was to be left alone. That's right, buddy. Isn't that what freedom's all about, though? Right? I mean, get out there and just do your own thing and be left alone to your own devices. I think that's one of the greatest things a person can have, frankly. So, but anyway, what else do we got here, folks? I will tell you, I've had a lot of thought on my latest solar power video, and it definitely created a bit of a firestorm. And I know one of the things I said in the video that I think might have been missed was at one point I said, I'm not saying that I don't like solar. I actually do. I love it. And that we could talk about the alternatives, because there are ways to make solar work for people. But I just think it's very important that when you look at solar in general, if you're looking at it from the perspective of the video that I put out, which is I want to go cheap and I want to save money. Well, those two things generally don't go well together. Now, yes, there are a lot of subsidies out there that can help reduce costs. I'm personally not in favor of them. That's just me personally. Don't shoot the messenger, but that's, I think we're all allowed to have that viewpoint, right? You get to have your own. I'm not in favor of subsidies, but I'm not telling you don't use them, because if they're there, you should use them. Take advantage of them. It would be silly not to. So as long as they're there and you can get 30% back on buying 10 solar panels, well, why the heck not? But I don't think that a lot of people have the skill set or the knowledge to put power in themselves. And those that do, you can benefit greatly, of course, right? Like I did at the cabin, saved a lot of money. And I've had a lot of posts from obviously some pretty talented folks that have gone out and managed to build systems that did amortize over shorter lengths of time. Some have shown 4 or 5 or 6 years. But again, if you look at length of home ownership, that I think is something that people often forget. So if you can build a system and pay for itself before you have to sell the home or do sell the home or move or something, well, there's nothing wrong with that. That's great. But it has to save you the money of the cost of the solar in utility bills. And that's the message I was trying to make in my video. My latest one was, if you're going to put $20,000 in solar in, then in that period of time that you're going to amortize that out, 5 years, 7 years, 13 years, whatever it is, it has to pay that $20,000 back. Otherwise, you're not even breaking even. So that's all that was about. And it created a lot of comments. So if you've got any questions on that, I'm happy to answer them. I did a lot of math, and yeah, I didn't go pull all of the subsidies because, frankly, I have people watching this channel from all over the world. And so I don't know what they do in the UK or in Germany or in Australia. I know fairly well what is done here, but I also don't look at, for example, EV stuff, right? I mean, apparently there are some pretty big subsidies for EVs. Again, personally not in favor of them, but if you can take advantage of them, go for it. But one of the comments that I made to one of the gentlemen I was having a discussion with was, the problem with subsidies is they are one of the reasons why the price of eggs for organic eggs at Albertsons yesterday when I was looking was $10 a dozen. And that's insane in my mind. That's crazy. But subsidies are nothing more than taking tax dollars that people paid in and giving them to somebody else. And that means you have to take in more tax dollars to pay for the running of the government. And they just print money, take out loans. And so that's, we're $35.5 trillion in debt right now. That's why organic eggs are $10 a dozen. And the only way to fix that is to stop spending money like we're drunken sailors. So anyway, enough on that. At our age, the returns are very diminished. Yeah, they can be. Absolutely. But anyway, for me, I'm all about freedom and being at the cabin in the middle of the woods without any neighbors nearby. Although I do actually have neighbors nearby now. They're probably 100 yards away. Don't really hear them much. You kind of hear them sometimes in the backgrounds. I mention it in some of my videos now and then. You can hear a generator just barely audible in the background. Occasionally I hear their kids or their goat or something, but honestly, most of the time it's so quiet out there. I love it. You're out there on your own with the bears, and now they're introducing grizzly bears back here, so I might have to start packing a 454 instead of a 45. I wonder if YouTube would yank this if we started talking about our everyday carry. All right, so what have you guys got for me today? I told you about my back channel. We're still moving forward. We've got lots to do. I've got lots of content to make. And the video I'm working on for Tuesday is actually the story of how we ended up buying our property and starting to build and building the cabin. And I'll be sharing I didn't do video back then, but I did pictures, tons and tons of them. So I will be sharing some of that. So for those that are interested in the cabin build and how it kind of came to be and how I built the cabin, I'm going to do that. And that'll come out Tuesday. And then I've got some ideas for Thursday's video as well that I still have to film. And one of the things I will tell you is that your questions often will instigate ideas for me on videos. So if you've got questions that you want answers to and I can provide them, don't be shy, ask them. I'll give you answers here, but I might make a video too for you. So what else we got? And again, be sure to let me know who I'm talking to. I've seen a few of you comment in the chat, so that's great. But I see that there's several more out there watching. So say hi and let me know who I'm talking to. And again, if you got questions, be sure to ask them. And you like the background? I don't have a green screen. Maybe I'll get one day. So it kind of, as I move around, the image kind of changes funny, or you see a chair hidden over here that doesn't fit well in that image, but it's just something I was playing with. So if you like it, I'll leave it up. If you don't, I'll take it back down again. But obviously you've seen that cabin before if you've seen my videos. So what questions do you have? What can I answer for you? What do you want to know? I'm drinking not your dad's root beer, or not your father's root beer tonight. You ever had that? It's pretty good stuff. Oh man. But I will tell you, this whole back thing, what a challenge. I'm 59 years old. And I think Ed, I think you got me by a few years. If you're the one I'm thinking of, I've chatted to a few times. And but there are times when I think, man, how did I ever get to be so beat up? And I know, I mean, almost 9 years in the service, 8.5-ish anyway, especially with over 5 years in the Marine Corps is enough to beat anybody up, frankly. And I was with Light Armored Infantry, which is now Light Armored Reconnaissance. And we were one of the most deployed units in the Marine Corps at the time. That was back in the mid 80s. Rough and tumble, right? Get beat up, get up, do it again. When I had my injury to my shoulder, I had it in a sling, and the corpsman had wrapped it all up and said I needed to keep that for 2 weeks. And then the troops all told me, Corporal McVeigh, you're just trying to get out of PT. So I took it off and I started doing push-ups and PT'd with them. Well, that was really dumb, because that was a long time ago, as in 1989. And now that thing's permanently dislocated. So the dumb things we do when we're kids. Did I finish the window upstairs? So, oh, wait, we got another one from Ed. So Masada 9S on, IWITS-12 in the truck. I'm in black bear country, but the two-legged variety seem to cause the most concern. Yeah, I carry a Kimber custom CDP2. I also have a custom TLE2, both in 45 ACP. I do prefer 45s. Most of the guys I know that worked in beyond the wire type jobs prefer 45s too. Big and slow. But I actually watched something recently where a guy actually got charged by a grizzly bear and he killed it with a 45. I was stunned, because I'd never, 45s are not really good for bears, frankly. I mean, anything's better than nothing, but I wouldn't personally choose a 45 for bears. I would actually, what I prefer when I'm in bear country, when I used to hunt and in the brush, is I carried a Ruger Vaquero, the old model Vaquero, which was built on the 44 Magnum frame, and loaded it myself. I do my own loading. So I loaded it with 360 grain hard cast lead made by a company called Oregon Trail. I think they're no longer in business. They were out of Baker City, Oregon, and they made these kind of silver lead alloy hard cast bullets. And so I loaded it with 360 grains, traveling 1,100 feet per second out of the barrel of that 45 Colt. Yeah, that's good for bear. Shoots a little slow, but man, I'll tell you. But, the 45 is more the two-legged kind, because, that, especially in remote locations, I think a lot of people don't realize you can scare bears off most of the time by yelling at them. I've actually I told that story on another live, where I literally was going to the back room just to change the temperature on my hot water heater, and there was a bear came charging up the hill, and I just yelled at it and chased it off. And 9 times out of 10, that's going to work. It's that one time that it doesn't work. And it might even be 99 times out of 100, or maybe even 999 times out of 1,000. But that one time it doesn't work, it helps to have something that's really, really loud that can be used for other than just making noise. Now, some like to think pepper spray is a good idea. Well, I grew up in bear country, and we always had a joke, which was the way you tell the difference between black bear scat and grizzly bear scat is black bear scat is black and it's got berries and stuff in it, and grizzly bear scat is brown and it smells like pepper and it's got bells in it. So anyway, 44 Magnum. Yeah, I mean, and the 45 Colt with the 360 grains, it was putting out the equivalent force of a 44 Magnum. Now that was on a 44 Magnum frame. So it's not something you would do with a standard 45 Colt. This was a 40 is, I still have it, is a 44 Magnum frame, everything. It's just been chambered in 45 long Colt. It's the original Ruger Vaquero from, gosh, I want to say the late 90s. In fact, it was the 90s. It was the late 90s when they did that. So you could load those up like a Thompson Contender. It's amazing. I put 7,000 or 8,000 rounds through that, and it's still tight. Still just barely broke in. So did I finish the window upstairs? Okay, so I finished kind of the one window, the one that you see in the video. The other side, I did not have the trim for to box it in. So I did not finish that one. And I haven't done the exterior trim because of the style I'm doing, and I need to do that. So now that I'm walking a little bit better, excuse me, I should be able to get into the shop and start doing that. And all I've got to do is get some 3-inch stuff. I've got some quarter sawn pine. I really like quarter sawn blue stain pine for that. And it's kind of silly. Nobody quarter saws pine, right? But I did it just for fun. But if you take it and round the edges off, that's what I did. So I will do a video on that. If you look at, you might not see it in any of my cabin videos, but the way I case those windows, instead of your standard 45s, is I did it like crosses all the way around. So you have, across the top and across the bottom, you've got these 3-inch round edge pieces of blue stained pine. And then you've got a cross, up and down pieces that cross them over so that you've got a little cross in each corner. It was actually my wife's idea. We love the way it looks. So I will be doing that. And I'm hoping to get both of those completely finished this winter. So I will bring that to you when I get to it. It's been a very, very long time. And so one of the problems with the cabin was that when I went kind of full time, technically I wasn't full time on my sawmill. I was full time as a manager for the phone company. And then I had my part-time sawmill business, and I ran the sawmill every weekend, every holiday, every vacation. And during that time, I got no work done in the cabin. So I went from full bore trying to get everything done in the cabin to taking a new job, working 50, 60 hours a week, and then adding the sawmill to that. And I was the most active sawyer in Eastern Washington at the time. That meant no work on the cabin. And that's part of the reason, by the way, for those curious, why it took 11 years to get that back door done. It wasn't a priority. So we will get to that, though. But all right, where are we at? 62 here, disabled Marine Corps veteran. Hey, Semper Fi, buddy. Gifted machinist, manufacturing engineer that owned my own machine shop for 18 years, 26-year career, raising 5 daughters and a son. Beat me and my knees up. Yeah, well, the Marine Corps didn't help you, I'm sure. Running in utes and boots, right? You're probably, I'm guessing you're going to be somewhere around my age. Back in the 80s, we still ran in utes and boots. And so my knees, they're shot. I've got what they call patellofemoral syndrome. So it's just pain in your knees all the time. Walking up and down steps is the worst. Otherwise, they're okay. But I hear you, brother. I mean, life beats us up, right? And I think the key is just to acknowledge that and say, okay, I got beat up. The Ruger Judge, that thing's a monster, and I've seen that several times. And with the 410 or 45 long, I think I don't know. I know a lot of guys carry those. It's big though, right? My Vaquero's not that big and heavy. Now, I will say that Vaquero will let you know when you fire those heavy bullets out of even 300 grainers out of that Vaquero, it's going to make your hand hurt. Actually, I got a story to tell you since we're talking guns. I was down in Southern Oregon, actually in near Grants Pass, north of Grants Pass. There's a shooting range, kind of. It's not really Merlin, I guess. It's Well, if you know that area, it's just off the I-5. I guess it is kind of Merlin. But anyway, there's this range there. And we had gone out to go shooting, and I brought my 45. And there was a guy shooting a Smith & Wesson, 500 Smith & Wesson Magnum, big monster with a, muzzle compensator on the end. And it's like $1 a bullet. And he's pounding away with this thing. And so I'm watching, and I'm like, wow, looks like a 500. And he said, yeah, you want to shoot it? And I said, sure. So I fired off around with it. And I was like, man, that almost hurts like mine does. And he looked at me. He was kind of offended. He still looks at me like, what? And I said, oh, man, it's not as bad as mine. That muzzle compensator really helps. And he said, well, what do you shoot? And I said, 45 Colt. And he was like, come on, right? There's no way a 45 Colt's going to feel like a 500 Smith. So I said, you want to shoot it? He said, yeah, sure. So I handed it to him, and he fired one round. And after he said, ow, rather loudly, he looked at me and he's like, what the hell are you shooting out of this thing? Well, I had those 360 grain hard cast bullets with Winchester 296 powder and CCI 350 primers at 1,100 feet per second with standard Vaquero wooden grips with the metal backstrap. Let me tell you, that hurt a lot more than his 500 Smith. But my philosophy was, if I ran into a big bear that was charging me, I'm not going to feel it. I'm going to want to put rounds down range that are going to bowl them over, knock them down, and break bones. And that's, I grew up in bear country. The mission is break bones. And I know that's kind of a topic that people are probably like, oh my God, this is a solar panel guy. Not really. I'm a Marine. What do you expect? But, if you get charged by a bear, shotgun is really number one, right? 12 gauge slugs, because you need to stop them. And if you put a round in the heart, you're not going to stop them. They can still maul you. Bears have been known to survive about 10 minutes with the heart and lungs shot out. They go on pure adrenaline. And so the object is to break bones. So you want great, big, and hard hitting, is what it is. Adrenaline is a heck of a drug. Yes, sir, it is. Yeah. So, but as for the judge, I mean, it's a cool gun. And, I have a philosophy. Do you know how many guns a guy needs? Just one more. So, my next guns, if I were to get any, and I don't know that I would now. I mean, I don't shoot as much as I used to, but my favorite of all guns is probably a side-by-side, open hammers, double triggers, 12 gauge. If you can't get them with open hammers, then I at least want double triggers. And I used to hunt birds with one up in Canada when I was living in British Columbia, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I mean, I moved over to the 870s, and I've got a couple of those and did a lot of bird hunting with them, but I still love the side-by-sides, and not over and under either. I'm a classic Western guy, right? Lever guns, wheel guns, side-by-side shotguns. You just can't beat it. Coach guns. Yeah, well, that's a good home gun, right? Absolutely. But I think the one I had 28-inch barrels, and that it was it might have been 26s, but it was the perfect grouse gun, right? You walking down some, and I used to, when I got out of the Marine Corps right after the war, I used to go hunting alone a lot. And I was in bear country on Vancouver Island. If you don't know anything about Vancouver Island, it has some of the biggest black bears in North America are on Vancouver Island. In fact, trophy hunters go there all the time to hunt them because they're monsters there. And I used to go hunting there alone all the time. And despite having grown up there and knowing that 9 times out of 10 you could chase them off with your voice, you always know that there's a chance you can't. So I used to carry that side by side with a slug in one side and then birdshot in the other one. You got to survive, right? You want to come home and eat. In fact, I used to fish with that because in Canada, they wouldn't let you carry a sidearm, right? That's illegal. Can't do that in Canada. Whereas here, if you're fishing in remote areas, you carry a sidearm, right? It's just too easy. You could be out in the middle of nowhere. And I know lots of guys, I've got friends that love to go fly fishing in grizzly bear country, and they all carry the Alaskan rigs with a 454 on their chest. That's a lot easier to handle than trying to carry a 12 gauge shotgun while you're fly fishing. But I was out fishing once on Vancouver Island near a place called Port Alice, almost right off the highway. Now, bear in mind, the highway there is a 2-lane road. It's 45 minutes between town and the next building. There's nothing between town and the next town except for, bears, deer, elk, wolves, cougars, and trees and lakes and fish, right? That's it. So you're literally in the middle of nowhere. So I'm there and I'm fishing away on this little lake, and I've got my 12 gauge propped up beside me, and a game warden showed up, and he said, "What are you hunting?" And I looked at him and I went, "Hunting? I'm not hunting. I got a fishing rod in my hand. I'm fishing." I said, "Well, what's that for?" And I said, "Oh, that's my bear repellent." He looked at me, kind of shook his head. He said, "Well, that's why I carry this." And he pointed at his pistol. And I said, "Yeah, well, we're in Canada. I can't do that here." So anyway, you could probably get my philosophy on sidearms and carrying and why I wouldn't live in Canada. And I did grow up there. So if you ever hear me say things like process and progress or occasionally, it is because I did actually grow up in British Columbia. We moved to British Columbia when I was a little over 2 years old, to a homestead right in the dead center of British Columbia, Vanderhoof, British Columbia, and literally on a 160 acre piece of land in the middle of absolutely nowhere with bears and everything all around. And I lived 20 years in Canada, grew up there, graduated high school there. And when I left, it was in 1986 to join the Marine Corps. And at the time, in order to retain my U.S. citizenship, even though I was born in the U.S., believe it or not, there are rules that you have to abide by. And in this case, I had to return to the U.S. before I turned 21 years of age and reside in the U.S. for 6 months in order to retain my citizenship at the time. So even though I was born here, natural born citizen, born in Oregon, and lived here for over 2 years before we moved to Canada, I still had to do that to make sure that I retained my U.S. citizenship. So I did. Came back in 86, and I went back up to Canada in 91 and turned around and left in 95. And I have never moved back. I wouldn't move back. Love the country, love the people, don't love the laws. And I'm a Marine, man. I like my sidearms. I like my firearms. I'm not giving them up. So, all right. Wow, we're really going off track tonight. We haven't talked about solar panels or sawmills or cabin building one yet, have we? Well, a little cabin. Finished with the Grizzlies in southern Montana. I finished with the Grizzlies in southern Montana, relying on prayer and the Lord's grace. Yeah, and that absolutely. I mean, I grew up in British. I mean, I lived all over British Columbia in places that you have everything. I've walked. I spent well, I'll tell you. I lived in a town called Ocean Falls. So if you want to look for a remote place, get online, look up Ocean Falls. If you get on YouTube, obviously after my live, right? But if you get on YouTube or anywhere else and search Ocean Falls, British Columbia, you'll find it's basically a ghost town now. But back in the 70s, there was 1,000 people that lived there. And it is by ferry. It took about, and we didn't even have a ferry at that time, but they did get one later before we left. But it took like 14 hours by ferry to get there from anywhere. And I want to say it was like 360 miles north of Vancouver, British Columbia, right on the coast, a little inlet called Cousins Inlet. And it was a town that was built on the side of a mountain. And obviously, when you're that remote, your neighbors are cougars and bears and wolves and all that kind of stuff. Oh my, right? Well, I had a job that I was a mechanic's helper when I was 11 or 12 years old at a Chevron gas station out in the valley. So the way the town was set up, at the end of the inlet, there was a river that came down called Link River. They dammed it up and they made a big lake behind the dam called Link Lake. And the town was basically built on the hillside, kind of below the dam and above the dam on the hillside. So if the dam broke, you'd only wipe out half the town, right? But so we lived in this little town, and there was only 1 mile of paved road, and that went from town out to Martin Valley. And that's where the gas station was. And it was the only gas station. Now, the town, I said only 1 mile of paved road. That's because the roads in town, with the exception of a couple in right downtown, which downtown, I mean, if you go look at Ocean Falls on YouTube, you're going to be like, what downtown? But it was kind of 2 blocks, but not even enough buildings for 2 real blocks, right? I'm talking a co-op, department store, and a hotel. There's downtown, but literally, right? But the roads were all made out of wood plank, literally wood plank roads. So the roads look like, like a wooden sidewalk, only they're roads, and they had railings, and because it was built up the side of a mountain, and you couldn't build roads there. The roads were on stilts, basically. But we had that 1 mile that went out to town, and that winter was a particularly cold winter, and we had some timber wolves coming to town, and those timber wolves were eating dogs and cats, literally eating dogs and cats. And no, it's not like the news nowadays where somebody else is eating dogs and cats, but it's actually the timber wolves were eating them. And I want to say it was like 19 cats and 17 dogs. Those numbers are still in my brain for some reason. Now we're talking like 1977 here, right? We're going back a little ways. And so I had this job, and we had about probably 1.5 feet of snow on the ground, and I needed to walk to work. And my dad was pretty tough. So he said, you're going to work. It doesn't matter that it snows, get to work, right? Head out the door and go to work. But I wanted the dog to go with me, and they wouldn't let the dog go with me. So I had to go on my own. So I take off. Well, the dog escaped, followed me anyway. We had this little dog. It was a little, like an Irish setter, golden lab cross, but it was really kind of a smaller dog, one I could just pick up and carry when I'm 12 years old, named Sadie. So anyway, Sadie the dog follows me, and I'm going to take her with me because I'm 12 years old and I don't want to deal with wolves. Thinking that a dog is a good idea, not thinking that the wolves had been eating dogs. So, I mean, 12-year-old brains don't work that well, right? So we get to the edge of town, and we start heading down that mile of paved road, and the dog freezes solid, will not move, will not budge. I try to drag her with a leash. She's not going to go. I mean, nothing's going to happen, or maybe there wasn't a leash and it was just a collar. I don't know. But in any case, the dog wouldn't move. The dog was just shaking in the middle of the road, obviously freaked out about something. I couldn't figure it out. And then I looked up, and now bear in mind that you're talking a 2-lane paved road that I'll tell you, if you're curious, go look up Ocean Falls when we're done here. You'll see what I mean. You have a paved road, and then the mountain goes straight up from the edge of the road and straight into the ocean on the other side, right? It's a shelf road, only at sea level almost, right? 5 or 6 feet above the water, maybe just above the high tide line. But the other side of the road is just straight going up a mountainside. And so we're not talking 40 or 50 feet here. We're talking 10 to 20 feet, very short distance. And I'm looking, and I see gray animals flitting through the trees on the other side of the road. It was the wolves. So I picked up the dog, and I had already learned that one of the first things you do when you're in the woods and you're dealing with wild animals is you talk to them, project your voice towards them, make sure that they know that you know that they're there. And so I named him, and we would call bears George or whatever. So that's what I did. Hey, George, or hey, Bob, hey, Sue. And just started talking to those wolves. And I walked that entire mile carrying the dog while the wolves flitted through the trees on the hillside just above me. And I got lucky because once I got to the gas station, it was closed. The guy hadn't even opened it up. But the ground there opened up quite a bit, and there was a water tower, or maybe they were fuel tanks, probably fuel tanks now that I think about it, across the road from me. And the wolves were hanging out behind there. And a guy in a pickup came along and wanted to know what the hell I was doing out there. Picked up the dog, telling me that it was insane that I had the dog because the wolves were about ready to eat it, and broke into the gas station and got me in there. Now, on a side note, I got fired because I broke into the gas station and tried to get warm. And there's more to that story. But, the point of the whole story is, yes, you can survive in the woods with wild animals that are hungry if A, maybe you're a bit lucky, and B, you've got the presence of mind to make sure that they know they're there. But it's not always going to work. And that's why I like to carry a sidearm with me at all times. And the few times that I've failed to do so usually resulted in me realizing that I probably shouldn't fail to do so. Probably got some more stories I could tell you about that. But And again, as always, questions, if you've got them, be sure to ask them. I will answer whatever you got. So I'm happy to talk about whatever you want. I'm here until you guys get bored and decide you don't want to be here anymore. I did see Rick Francis on with us, I think, or no, that was Rick Reese. I'm sorry, Rick. I don't think we've talked before. So I'm trying to think if I recognize your name. And I mentioned earlier that the names I see in the chat here don't always reflect the names. Excuse me, this root beer is making me burp. But they don't always reflect the names I see on comments on videos. So if we've chatted a bit before on video comments, and I just don't recognize your name, now that's why. So, but I don't recognize it, Rick. I thought you were Rick France, and then I realized it was Rick Reese. I've actually, I've also may have folks pop in at some point when I do my lives. I've decided to open them up to some of my buddies that have YouTube channels. So you never know. You might find somebody pops in now and then. But what else have we got? We've gone through sidearms, hot loading 45s to shotguns to wolf stories to bear story. I got bear stories too. I mean, you know, when you grow up in these kind of remote locations like I did, I think one of the things that it does is it just puts you in these places that you end up with adventures. And somebody said to me once, they said, how is it that you have so many stories you can tell about things? And I said, well, I think it's because I lived one of those lives where you just end up in these places. And so it wasn't just later when I joined the Marine Corps, but as a kid, we lived all over. I think I lived in something like 30 different towns before I finally joined the Marine Corps. And I went to 4 grade 1s. I think I went to, I don't even know how many schools. It's somewhere between 12 and 18 different schools. And I've sit down every once in a while, try to remember how many there were, but you know, 4 grade 1s is a good start, right? So if you wonder how it is that I'm willing to just BS with folks, well, when you move around as much as I did, you got to kind of learn how to do that, I guess. So, so what do we want to talk about tonight? Like I said earlier, the way these things go, you ask the questions, you give me some ideas, we'll talk. I'll tell you what I think. If you joined us a little bit late, I did explain that I slipped a couple discs in my back, so that's why videos have been a little less consistent in the last couple of weeks. But I am on the mend, and I can actually walk a little better. Although I will tell you that soft ground like grass or beaches or rocky ground, that's pretty much out for me right now. It's got to be hard ground. Luckily, the cabin is pretty hard, and I should be able to get up there and get back to work soon. But I probably will not be lifting any big D-log beams when I try to get back to working at the cabin. So I'm not sure we're going to get to that D-log build this fall. That was my plan. Totally was that was going to happen. Absolutely. Even sat down today, and here's something. I don't know if any of you have done any builds like this, but I've been really debating what I'm going to do for my floor insulation. And I'm thinking that I'm going to do the idea behind the cabin is the foundation will be skidder logs, basically 2 big logs, look like skis, build the cabin on top of them. But I'm thinking what I'm going to do is do a ladder style floor, basically 6-inch floor beams that are inset into those skidder logs. And then the whole cabin will be built on top of that. But the one thing that I've gone back and forth on is how I'm going to insulate that floor. I think I'm going to lay 2-inch R10 foam on those big 6-inch logs and then nail the floor down on top of it and use the logs to sandwich that 2x10 or I'm sorry, 2-inch R10 pink foam floor, basically, because rats and mice are a real issue if you use bats like I have on the cabin. And of course, you got to get up under there and put hardware cloth and stuff like that. So I won't be doing that. I think we're just going to go with R10. And I'm also thinking that I'll probably do an OSB sheeting on top of it and then 1-inch 1x TNG, just like I did in the cabin. And I made all my own TNG. I'll just mill it up out of fir and pine on the cabin or on the property and make the flooring like I did the rest of it. And that cabin build I had intended to start very, very soon, but soak in hot Epsom, let's go back to Steve. Hey, Steve, nice to see you, buddy. Um, Steve, by the way, folks, I think, Steve, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't we serve in second LAV/LAI together? I'm pretty sure we did, but my memory has gotten really rough and I don't remember all the guys, particularly from Bravo. So remind me, because I think you and I, unless you were in Delta at the same time, but we were in the service together. But yeah, the VA is actually taking care of my back. Um, for those that don't know, I'll let this slip. This is a rare thing because I've often thought about whether I would tell you guys this or not, but I am actually permanently and fully 100% service connected. So for those that don't know what that means, it's the VA is very difficult to get any rating through. Frankly, they don't like to help anybody, if you ask me. But my injuries add up to over 200% on the VA system, so puts me at. That's how I'm retired. I'm retired because I'm a busted up old jarhead. That's what I always say. So, but Steve, I think you and I served together, and Ed, I think that's a great idea. To be honest, I probably couldn't have gotten in and out of a tub until about Thursday. I had my steroid injections and two L4, L5, L5S1. I have two vertebrae that are like this, and unfortunately, if you go like that and the discs slip, then you don't walk or get in and out of tubs. So I think that's a great idea, and I probably could get into one now. I'm able to get up and walk around. Steve, my mind is FUBAR also. I was in our Artie and so friends with Ed Ward. Okay, so then we probably didn't serve together if you were in Artie. That's why. But if you knew Ed, I think Ed and I served together. But it's funny. It's a small world. We're all Marines here anyway. And there's another one. I want to say Dane is a Marine. I want to say Ed was Navy. So lots of service guys here. And we all seem to be packing too. It's such a strange thing, isn't it? I don't think I know too many veterans that don't. But yeah, anyway, what else do we got? We've talked grizzlies, black bears, wolves. We haven't really talked about cougars. I've got a friend. How many of you have heard that mountain lions, cougars, only get to like 150 or 170 pounds? I know I had read that time and again when I was growing up, but out here in Eastern Washington, there are cats out here that weigh well over 200 pounds. And I have a friend that actually got charged by one and he killed it in defense and actually ended up keeping it. And I've seen the pictures of that cat. It's bigger than he is. I mean, it's insane. I think he said it weighed 230 pounds. That's crazy. Yep, Ed, I thought so. Yep, need to be strapped. Amen, brother. Yep. See, I knew, Ed, you were in the Navy, and I want to say you're over on the West Coast. I think I sent you something once, maybe a hat and some stickers or something. I can't remember, but memories get faded. So, but all right, what else we got? Time is it here? We're not even an hour yet. I've been known to go for 2.5 hours, so you guys are going to have to come up with questions for me. I can only go as long as I've got questions and things to talk about. I guess I could think about, I think we're going to have a wet winter this year. They say we are. And that's probably one of my biggest issues with the solar panels on my roof is that I've got that covered deck. And so the roof's a 12-12 pitch, sheds the snow like nobody's business, but the deck roof is only a 3.5-12 pitch. So what happens is the snow will slough off those solar panels on the roof and end up on the roof of the deck, and it ain't going anywhere then. And it just backs up. And so this year is a bit of a concern because with my back, if I'm unable to get up there and start shoveling snow off that roof, that could be a bit of a challenge for me. So we'll see how that goes. But this year, I think we're going to get hammered. We got a lot of snow the last couple of years, and we can get a lot of snow up there. Usually I don't get more than about 2 feet on the ground. But we've had drifts that were over 5 feet. And I know that if I don't keep that road clear this year, it could be tough getting in January. So, and I go in every month. I'm usually there about 5-6 days a month, usually 2 weekends. A lot of times I go up early Friday morning and head home on Sunday afternoon, or I'll go up Thursday and head home on Sunday or Monday, unless I decide to go up for a whole week. But in the wintertime, it's always about trying to keep the road open. We're up at 3,200 feet, and the climb starts about 700 or 800 feet below there. It's 3 miles, totally off road. And of course, you got to chain up just to get in. Without chains, you ain't getting in. Or if you do, your trip out is going to be exciting. So, let's see, what am I missing here? Outback meat preservation and cooking and smoking is a good topic. Yeah, actually, it would be. I'm not sure what that symbol is, Steve. What is that? Love your bread. Oh, a lot of people don't know that I actually started another YouTube channel years ago, and I haven't done anything with it in about 3 years, but I keep thinking that I may do another bread video pretty soon on that channel. So for those that are interested in it, check that out. But this is a good topic. Western North Carolina, huh? Western North Carolina. So you must be out. Is that Asheville? Asheville? God, it's been a long time. Well, whatever happened with the inverter? Okay, so let me do the inverter first. And then I do want to talk about outback meat preservation. That's a great topic. Cooking, especially. So the inverter, I actually got a shipping label from Sun Gold Power. We went to FedEx and basically said, this is your fault. FedEx agreed, and they will come pick it up as soon as I'm able to get it available for them. Unfortunately, due to my back injury, that inverter weighs a lot. I think it's the whole box probably weighs between 60 and 80 pounds. So I'm not picking up. This is about the extent of what I'm picking up right now. Well, you can't even see it. It's a beer bottle, only it's root beer. But so that will get shipped back to them, and I'm just going to leave the one that I've got in place. It actually works. And the weird thing is, once I put my 120 volt fan on it, the fan on the unit started to work also. So I don't know if maybe something was pinched because of the damage on the original inverter, and it just kept that fan from coming on when it should have. But I will say that those low frequency inverters, while they're heavy, they're damn near bulletproof. And I wouldn't even be surprised if the one I'm shipping back probably works fine. That is one thing about those big, heavy monsters. I mean, my Ames inverter was, I put that Ames inverter in 2013. It was near the end of about November or something like that of 2013. Actually, probably sooner than that. Probably September of 13. But and it still works fine. The only challenge with it is it doesn't have the best remote, and it didn't have any LiFePO 4 settings, which I really wanted. It also didn't have the AutoGen start switch, though frankly, I don't like the way they do it on either of them anyway. I think that inverter auto start switches are catastrophic fail anyway, and I don't like that. That's not how you preserve your batteries, right? Ideally, LiFePO 4s, according to pretty much every manufacturer now, should be run between 30 and 70% depth of discharge, and most will give you a rating of like 15 to 20,000 cycles at 40%. So you'll start to see that more if you look at batteries and things today. A lot of them are starting to admit, yeah, if you only use them 30 to 40% depth of discharge, they'll last you dang near forever. So I'm just going to keep that first inverter that still works fine. It's just the fan wasn't coming on when it was pretty warm, and it got over 120 degrees on top of it. But I've solved that problem with the remote fan, and I know that Sun Gold Power would send me another one if I wanted them to, but I just said, nah, you know what, let's just leave it. I don't trust FedEx. They're kicking boxes, they're doing something. And the one thing you guys couldn't see in the video is that Tim and I actually took a really close look at that box, and the one thing we realized was that on the sides of the box, the plywood that they're using is very thin, and it's very well packaged. However, if you were to kick that or run forks of a forklift into it, it would absolutely dent the side of that inverter. And I think that something ran into it. Now, one commenter made the comment, how could that be two of them like that? I agree with them. It's entirely possible that it's not a FedEx issue, that it could be a warehousing issue. But I'm not an investigator. I don't know. So my feeling was, if it was damaged before FedEx shipped it, they shouldn't have. It's their fault for accepting it, in my opinion, because it was absolutely damaged when I got it. So, but that's the inverter story. So we're going to stick with the one that we already have. All right, let's talk about Outback meat preservation and cooking and smoking. It is a good topic. First of all, the cooking and the smoking thing. I have been smoking meats for a while, maybe 15 years, maybe more, maybe closer to 20. I know that's not as many as some, but it's been a little while. And I've gotten lazy. I use a Traeger now, but I did start with Weber bullets. My dad actually bought me a Weber bullet. Gosh, I don't even know. It could be close to 20 years ago. And I loved that thing. The only thing is I'm a bit of a geek. And so I kept thinking that I would want to put fans on it one day and some probes and be able to control the temperature a little bit better. And excuse me, guys, I'm going to shut notifications off on my phone because people keep sending messages to me, which is annoying as all hell. There, killed it. So I love smoking meat, and I don't do it from a preservation standpoint, though I do know how. I also have a dehydrator. I've got an Excalibur 9-drawer dehydrator. If you're not familiar with Excalibur, they're probably one of the best out there. They're expensive. They can get up to 155 degrees, and they are awesome. And I've done a lot of jerky with them. In fact, I love doing venison jerky that is ground. So if you've never had ground jerky, in my opinion, it's the best. And what I would do is we would grind up venison, and then you brine it. And I would use the Excalibur dehydrator to do it because you could do it at 155 degrees, which technically cooks and make sure that there's no bugs in it, and dries the meat as well. And it is awesome. It's mouthwatering. It's crazy. In fact, if my hands worked better, and that's the thing, I don't talk about it a lot, but neither of my thumbs have knuckles anymore. I've been damaged too much, so I have to get them shot up every 3 months with steroids so that they work. They'll have to cut them open and operate on them here in the near future, but it means that I have no grip, so I can't easily skin an animal anymore. So for me, hunting deer, I haven't been doing it for several years now, just because it's just too physically demanding for me to try to gut and clean and skin and butcher a deer anymore. But I used to do it and I loved it, and loved making my own jerky. But let's see, what else do we got? So meat preservation, I can as well. So you guys are like, wait, what? You do what? I do it all. I make my own soap. I do everything. I grew up in an environment. I mean, we homesteaded a piece of land in British Columbia. So I grew up in that environment where you just learn to do things. And one of the things that I've learned over the years, if you're interested anyway, and be sure to drop comments down below and let me know. But I've learned that a lot of times the things that we learn in modern society are not actually better. So for example, if you shave and you use one of those Gillette 5-razor type blades, well, then you're wasting money. It's an insane waste of money. Took me a while to figure that one out, though I'm old enough that I started on the old Gillette butterfly safety razor, Well, I discovered that if I went back to one of those, it would save me insane amounts of money. I could get 100 blades for $15 and last me 2 years, versus the old days of buying those 5-blade Gillettes, and it's like 40 some odd dollars for 16 of them, and they barely last you a week because I've got a tough beard. So I do it all. And canning meat, absolutely. In fact, we had tonight for dinner, we had split pea soup that we canned last year. And so I mean, it's I guess when you look at the whole cabin building, it probably makes sense that I have a sawmill and I make my own lumber to build a cabin. I didn't start that way though. So for those that don't know, I actually started the cabin with store-bought lumber. I didn't have a sawmill then. And that was back in 2009. I was actually one of the top dart players in the Northwest, and I ran the world's #1 dart website, believe it or not. And yeah, darts, and I should see if I could. You know what? Here, you guys want to see? Let me see if I can find something to share. Let's see if I can find. Maybe I might be able to do it. Let me see if I can find something to show you. But yeah, I used to play darts, and I had this dart website it was called sewa-darts.com, SEWA for Southeastern Washington area, and then also dartplayer.net. And I had sponsors. And one day, one of those sponsors sent me a check for $2,000. And I took that check and used that to buy the lumber that I started building the cabin with. And if you're wondering what I'm looking at, I'm just trying to see if I can pull up an old picture or two of the old Jarhead playing darts somewhere for you. But in fact, at the Las Vegas Desert Classic, which was a major dart tournament in the U.S. back then, a $250,000 dart tournament. When I got married, that's where Darcy and I went for our honeymoon, and we got up on stage and the whole 9 yards, and and it was a crazy thing. Oh yeah, here we go. Let's see. Let me see. I'm gonna do a screen share. You guys ready for this? Screen sharing works best. Whatever. I'm gonna share you the screen. Do me a favor. Drop it in the comments. See if you could see these pictures while I share them to you. But that's Darcy right there with John Part, who's a 3-time world dart champion. That's Phil Taylor with a buddy of mine. Phil's in the red and black. That's the LVDC televised. This is on big time television. They're not the greatest pictures in the world, but I'm flashing through them pretty fast, looking to see if I could find one that I'm actually in, because right now I don't see. Oh, there we go. You can just barely see it. That's me in the green and black. The red in that one. There we go. I'm in the red and black. Darcy's in the pink. Let me go back to my main screen and see if you guys can see that or not. Do you see it or what? Okay, I'm gonna cancel sharing. If that didn't work, I apologize. But anyway, so building the cabin, that's how it started, and that was in 2009. And this is all coming out on Tuesday in a video, by the way, but I'm sharing it with you guys ahead of time. And then in 2010, I started chainsaw milling. I realized I had a lot of logs. I had a chainsaw, and it was actually a friend of a friend on Facebook said, "Hey, Jarhead, why don't you get a chainsaw and make your own lumber?" And I thought, "Oh, that's a great idea." So that's what got me into that. By January of 2011, I bought my first sawmill, and because chainsaw milling was taking an awful long time, folks. But I was using my Jeep to haul logs out of the forest, and instead of like Two Brothers Outdoors with their ATVs, I was using a Jeep. And then logs on the ground, get your chainsaw mill set up, and start making boards. And so I started sawmilling in 2011. And it was all about the cabin. So back to the point of the topic of meat preservation and cooking and all those kind of things. My point is just that I've done that kind of stuff for a very long time. So yeah, we do it all. Can our own meat. We have a freeze dryer, so we also do freeze drying. I've done a lot of eggs, milk, different meals, and so I'm totally into all of that kind of stuff. My stepfather told me once I was born 100 years too late. I mill my own flour, so when I make my whole grain breads, I'm using my own flour. You're all like, "Oh my God, what is this guy?" Oh, good Lord. Long time since I tuned in. W, how you doing? It's been a while. Just wanted to say hi. Upgraded to an LT40 hydraulic from the LX150. Absolutely love it. Awesome. W, Nice to see you. It has been a while. I recognize the Nick, but it's been a while. So glad you got the LT40 hydraulic. I love mine. I would never go back. So what now let's see. That was Dane. You brought up that topic about cooking and smoking. You got any specific questions about doing it? Are you talking just out back or at any time anywhere? I'm kind of curious what you were thinking there. Let's see what else we got here. Hang on, guys. Let me try to catch up to the comments a little bit. Let's see. Oh, good night. So Ed's taking off. Good night. Thanks for being here, Ed. Steve, got to go. Simplify, buddy. Tom and Tammy's off grid. Does freeze drying take a lot of power? Yes, actually. Could you do it in your setup? I think you've got enough power. It does. The problem with the freeze dryer is that it usually runs about 25, 26 hours. You're running a vacuum pump and it freezes down to like minus 40. So it does take a lot of power, but I've never measured to see what kind of power it absorbs. But I would guess that, I mean, you've got a pretty serious off-grid system. So I would have to look. What you could do, I have a Harvest Right, the medium size. I would get on Harvest Right's website and look up what they say the power draw is on that. Excuse me. I will tell you that it's run off of a standard 15 amp circuit, but they do run a long time, and that vacuum pump is going to run a long time. So more people are getting back to the art form due to this harsh economy. Yeah. Okay, first of all, let me go back to Tom. So Tom, you want to have an episode on freeze drying or on power requirements for freeze dryers? Dane, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think that, honestly, I think my YouTube channel happens to be in a good place for some people, because a lot of people want to do the things that I do, and I'm happy to share them. And I think that's kind of a match. But absolutely, I will tell you that when I started making my own soap, I haven't bought soap in so long. I couldn't even tell you how long it's been, because I don't remember the last time I had to buy any. And I hate traveling somewhere if I don't bring any with me. Because the one thing I learned very early on is soap manufacturers, and nothing against them. I'm a free market kind of guy, right? I'm a capitalist. I don't care. If you want to do what they do, that's their business. The free market should dictate it. But what they do is kind of genius, is they remove the glycerin from the soap, and then they put it in the moisturizing oils that they sell to women, because soap without glycerin dries your skin out. And so then they got to sell you something to moisturize your skin. It's brilliant. But in my case, I just make my own soap, which has lots of glycerin in it, and it just works better, and it's cheaper. It's pennies on the dollar. And I will tell you, in the video that I'm working on for Tuesday, I think I talk about some of these things. One of the things that I talk about is how Darcy and I were able to buy the property and build the cabin and budget for it the way we did, because I've had a lot of people say to me, I wish I could do that. And I always laugh at them. And I say, well, you could. Stop eating a Jack in the Box, first of all, or wherever it is you eat, because modern people seem to eat out all the time. And I'm like, I had a friend tell me he spent $500 a month on eating food out at places. And I said, well, dude, that's half my cabin budget. You're eating half of your cabin, but you want a cabin in the woods, stop eating out. There's half the money you need to get your cabin in the woods. But we do things like make our own soap. It's cheaper. We don't have cable TV. We haven't had cable TV in, I don't know, 20 years. We don't buy bottled water. We don't eat out. We eat out once in a while, but we make better food than you can eat out anyway, because if you make your own food, it's better than what you can buy. Steve mentioned my bread. So if you don't see me on Facebook, you can find me as the old Jarhead. You'll find that page on Facebook. And if you find that, you can find me. My Facebook is fairly locked down. So if you haven't found me on Facebook, I suggest find the old Jarhead first. Then you can find my personal Facebook, I'm sure. But I do that intentionally just because I've had Facebook get really out of control for me before, when I had my Dart website. So it was really huge, and it gets to be unmanageable sometimes back in those days anyway. So I locked it all the way down. I have it set so that you either got to be a friend of a friend or that's it. They won't find me, but you can find the old Jarhead. So, but what Steve was talking about is I make my own bread. I started making my own bread about 30 years ago. And I not only make my own bread, but I make all breads. So French bread, sourdough, whole wheat bread, pumpernickel, you name it, I make it all. I mill my own flour for all my whole wheats. I don't obviously do it for whites because I don't have a means of, I'm not going to bleach them. I don't use bleached flour anyway. But I'm not yet one that knows how to make white flour. I have bolted flour. If you don't know what that is, it's essentially after you mill your own whole wheat flour, it tends to be pretty heavy on the bran and germ. And if you bolt it, you're essentially sifting out the bran and the germ and trying to leave more endosperm, which makes a lighter flour, but it's still not white. But I make my own. And that's one of the things that Darcy and I did was we really took a very, very serious look at where the money was going. And you start to realize back in those days, we had Blockbuster, and we were going to Blockbuster sometimes every weekend to go get a couple movies. And you realize, wait, if we just don't do that, that's how much money you can spend. And we cut cable. And I think we had Netflix for a while. We got rid of it when they started getting a little weird, but we had Netflix, and and then we had Hulu until we got rid of them. And we do TV on the internet, a lot of YouTube, but we also do other television. I kind of like things like SEAL Team, right? One of my favorite shows. Too bad they're ending that. Yellowstone, 1883, Bass Reeves. I love the Westerns, but we don't have cable. Haven't had cable in so long. I don't remember last time we did. No dish, none of that. Now, I did put a dish satellite in at the cabin back in 2013, and I had it there for about a year. But I was living out there alone, and at the time, especially in the winter, I would get up there. If I left work early enough because I was in management, I could work from the cabin. I would often get up there about 4 o'clock. Well, it'd be pitch black already, and it wouldn't be light until I got to work the next day. So it's not like you're going to be out running around, running your sawmill and falling trees and building things in the woods in the middle of the night, because it was the middle of the night at 4 p.m. So what do? Read, check out things on the internet, and watch TV, right? So those dishes that you see whenever you see the cabin videos, neither one of them is hooked up. And I keep saying I'm going to pull them out one of these days. One of them was for HughesNet internet that I needed when I was working there, because I lived and worked at the cabin for a year. And so I had to have internet, had to have a phone, and I had that satellite dish for TV at that time as well. But that's it, right? If you get rid of all those things and you start making your own food and learning how to make your own bread, right? Bread, I did the math once, probably 15 years ago, and I think it was costing me 50 cents a loaf to make a loaf of bread. And I was making big loaves of bread because we had kids at home. And yes, this old jarhead who carries a 45 and runs around the woods alone by himself all the time and loves to go fishing and hunting and do all those things. He also makes bread and soap and cans food and gardens and everything else, right? Because why not, right? We just canned 10 jars of Blue Lake bush beans tonight. Now, Darcy did 99% of the work because with my back, I can't do a whole lot right now. But last year, I think we had 103 jars of beans canned. We can our own tomato sauce. We can, she's doing some salsa right now, and she's done zucchini relish. She's doing zucchini salsa. We do pepper jellies. We do it all, right? And I mean, that's the way it should be, right? You should do it all. Power requirement for Tam B. That's a name I don't recognize. So Tam B, welcome to the channel. Welcome to my live. And I love it. What kind of soap do you make? I've tried, I really only make one kind myself. And there was a gal on the net that I got the recipe from a long time ago. Very long time ago. It was called Canolive 2, and it's the only thing I would use canola for. I won't eat canola oil. and you could replace it with, I think, just straight vegetable oil, but it's basically olive oil, canola oil, coconut oil, and lye and water. And if you want to put some essential oils in it, which my wife likes to have some, but otherwise, I don't worry about it. Cold process. Okay. So yeah, I mean, it's the same as I'm doing, right? Do you use a blender? One of those stick blenders? Those work great if you don't. But let's see. Can't eat wheat. We have to figure out how to make gluten-free bread that doesn't taste like cardboard. Oh, well, I'm sorry to hear that. A lot of people that have gluten problems often can actually eat my bread, and I found that interesting. My daughter had some trouble with gluten, and it turns out it wasn't really gluten that she had trouble with. And I'm not saying that's your problem, don't get me wrong, but in her case, it was actually the chemicals in store-bought bread. And she would come and visit, and she'd say, "Dad, how come I can't eat bread, but I can eat your bread?" And I would tell her, "Well, that's because my bread is flour, water, salt, and yeast. That's it. There's nothing else in it." And so for some people, obviously gluten is an issue and they cannot eat it regardless of how they get it. It's simply you cannot. And for those people, that's terrible. Because I love bread and I hate to hear that. And unfortunately, I don't know anything about making non-gluten breads. If I did, I would share it, but I don't. So yeah, but not while mixing in fragrance. Yeah. So for those that aren't following, Tambi and I are talking a little bit about making soap and a cold process of making soap, which is kind of funny because it does involve heat. It's just not as much heat. But the process is essentially you get your hard fats, which in this case for me is coconut, and you get them to melt, and then you add your soft fats, which is like vegetable oils, olive oil, that kind of thing. And once you get them to a specific temperature, and I want to say it's like about 105 degrees Fahrenheit, you've also already put lye in water, and you're trying to get that to cool down to get to about the same temperature, around 105 degrees. Then you mix the two together and you begin a process of stirring it until you get something called saponification. You're like, what? How is this a cabin building, old Jarhead sawmilling solar panel guy? We're making soap now. Earlier, we were carrying 45s in the wood, defending ourselves from timber wolves and bears, and now we're making soap. This is one hell of a night. In any case, we do use the stick blender even when we add fragrances or essential oils or something right near the end, though, right before you get that perfect saponification and it's time to get it in the mold. Been doing it a long time. To me, it's cheaper, it's better for you, but it's like anything, right? We have a Crown Berkey. So if you're not familiar with a Crown Berkey, it's a water filter type system. There's actually a lot of knockoff types now. You can get them at I think like Patriot Supply or something has them. I've seen them online. They have a big silver container, right? 6 gallons on the bottom, 5 on top, big, huge filters inside of them that'll filter like 3,000 gallons of water. And we started doing it because where we lived, the water was horrible. It was just god awful, horrible water and tasted bad, all kinds of stuff. Just didn't want to drink it, full of heavy metals and who knows what else. So, and we wanted to quit buying bottled water, and we were buying like 2 cases of bottled water like weekly or something crazy like that. And I thought, what are we doing? Why are we wasting this money? And at the time, the Crown Berkey was, I think, $300. So we said, that's it. We're going to buy this thing. Haven't bought water since. And in fact, we make our own distilled water now too. And once you start down that rabbit hole, right? So I still got a few of you out there, haven't chased everybody off yet. But once you start down that rabbit hole of doing things for yourself, it snowballs and you start doing more and more and more and more on yourself. And so if you want to build a cabin in the woods, and this is part of my message in my next video, that's kind of how you do it. You start to realize that you don't need all those things, that you can make a lot of it yourself and do it better. Now, you obviously can't do that if you sit and you watch, 2 or 3 football games in a row on a weekend, because that's not going to work. So I don't watch sports on television. I do watch television, but I don't watch that much of it. Although right now I'm a little broken, so I watch a little more than usual probably. But you've got it, Berkey. So Tam B. I want to say, it makes me want to say Tammy, but is it two people's names like Tom and Tammy? And by the way, Tom, I haven't been back to your channel in a little while. I've been really busy, but I'm assuming Tammy's back because I think I saw her in a video recently. So I hope so. And one of these days, Tom, maybe I'll have you on one of these lives with me. But so Tam B, let me try to run. Let me run down this here real quick. Yes, but not mixing. Use coconut oil, palm oil, avocado oil. Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, that could be interesting. That could be fun. Oh, Tom is your other half. Ah, ha, 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 ha. Nice. You are visiting grandkids. Okay. All right. So you're not back on the homestead? But, well, nice to meet you. And, so, you're married to a jarhead, you know the drill, right? We're a little intense sometimes. But I like that recipe. I'd like to check it out. It'd be kind of a fun one to give a try. I'm always up for trying new things. And again, because you're doing it yourself. And you guys have done a lot. And for those that don't know, Tom and Tammy's Off Grid is another YouTube channel where they've got a down in Southern Oregon, which is closer to where I was born. They've got all kinds of crazy stuff going on down there. He's got a sawmill now too, doing his own build. And one of these days I might get down there because I've got another buddy down there that's in Rogue River that I need to go see. And so, it'd be kind of fun to hook up with you guys too. I could see a tour coming up. The old Jarhead Sawdust Roadshow back on the road, just without my sawmill. Could be fun. Tom talks about you lots and watches your videos. Well, I'm glad. Oh, and a beekeeper. Oh my, I'm in love. You guys are awesome. I would love bees. I was this close. I kept thinking, if I had the time. The problem is, and you guys, this because you're doing it. It's always time, right? I mean, so I would love to do bees. I'd love to do my own honey. Absolutely. I just don't have the time. And unfortunately, to be honest, with anybody still watching, which I got a few of you out there still, YouTube's a full-time job for me. And because I do my own editing, so not only do I have to do my own video planning, and although a lot of my videos do tend to be off the cuff kind of stuff, which you probably notice, I do plan some of my videos, and that does involve planning and trying to come up with something that you'll actually want to watch. But then I also have to do my own editing, and I'm a computer geek. I've played with computers since the late 70s, but it still takes a lot of time, and it's a learning process always. And so unfortunately for me, if I really wanted to get into some of the stuff that I'd love to do, I'd probably have to quit YouTube so I could do it. And that is a challenge. And I'm not going to do that because I enjoy doing YouTube too. So, but hey, good night, Freddie. Have a good night. All right. What else do we got? We are now at 7:00 almost. So we're an hour and a half in. I still got a bit of an audience here, so I don't want to quit. But you know what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to throw out some more channel memberships here. I like to try to do those whenever I do a live at the beginning of the month, because it allows you to do it every month. And for those that get them, if you happen to be on, it's random out of the 12,500 subscribers. It's just random. But it just gives you a little insight into some of the behind the scenes stuff and access to videos that are not open to the public. So I do have more videos out there that I turn off and make them members only. I also a lot of times put videos out and then decide to make changes to them, and I'll leave that original video out for members. They're often longer. So sometimes, I'll just leave those out there under the members only section so they can see them. Another thing I've also taken to doing at least once now, and I'm planning on doing more of, is I do sometimes editing sessions where I will do them with members. So I'll be editing, but I will open up a YouTube live for members only, so that while I'm editing, if you're interested in how I do my editing, I use DaVinci Resolve, by the way, which is on 19 now. I open that up and let those members that are interested who want to do YouTube channels in how that goes. And by the way, I will answer any question. So if somebody says, yeah, well, what about this? And you want to know about YouTube stuff, I'll answer it. Got nothing to hide. So you want to know how much I make on YouTube? I will tell you if you ask. I don't, for me, YouTube doesn't pay a lot, first of all. So for anybody that thinks you're going to get rich on YouTube, you can, but you've got to have like 1 million subs. So, you know, here's some statistics for you in case you're curious. Only about 8.5% of all YouTube channels ever actually get to 1,000 subscribers. Of those, approximately only 50% of them monetize at the same time. Now, that's before they changed monetization to 500. I think it's 503,000, but you don't get full monetized until you're at 1,000 subs and 4,000 watch hours. But so it's 8.5%. That's it. That's a very small percentage. To get to 10,000, I'd say it's probably less than half that. At 100,000, you're probably in the top 1% of all YouTube channels. It's incredible. Most people aren't willing to keep going. And if this is boring you, that's, let me know. We're getting near the end of the night though. But just being honest. But if you're curious, most people don't keep doing YouTube because it's a long game. It's a diminishing returns. If you're not going to get rich quick doing YouTube, in case anybody's wondering, you're just not going to. You could, if you get to where I'm at, you can make anywhere from $70 or $80 in a month to $500 or $600 in a month. It depends on how well you put your videos out and how well they perform. But every video either can perform well or not. And because of that, YouTube pays approximately $5 per 1,000 views. So for example, if you look at my channel right now, you know that I put a video out yesterday that has 1,100 views. Well, you can do that math. That's about $5. And it represents many hours of my time. So a lot of people don't keep doing YouTube because of that. I just enjoy it, so I don't mind doing it. Hey, Arrowhead Woodsman. Wow, nice to see you, buddy. It has been a while. Are you at work or are you off work now? I'm glad I stuck around a little longer. By the way, folks, Arrowhead has been on my channel, and we have been chatting for a long time. Years, I'm sure now. I don't even know. It's been a while. But I want a free dryer. Can't convince Tom Off-Grid to purchase. Please make an episode so he will buy me one. You know how you do it? I'm going to tell you how to do it, Tam. You and Tom get together and do a review video on trying to run a dryer with your off-grid power. And if you do the video right, it will get lots of views. And if it gets lots of views, somebody will offer you a more efficient dryer. I'm winking. It's true though, right? So companies have learned that the best bang for their buck when it comes to advertising is YouTube. And it is actually one of the big challenges when you get your channel to a certain size and you have a certain level of success, because a lot of people come to you and they want you to review things. Now, I will tell you, I turn down things all the time. I test things and sometimes I just don't do it. I had a company called Magic Mind reach out to me and offer me a small sponsorship, and I tested the product and I told them, you know what, honestly, I can't tell my audience that I like this product. It tastes fine, but it didn't do anything for me. So I'm not going to, I'm just not going to do it. And there are times when I just tell people, no, I'm not interested because I don't believe that you want to know about it. So if I do a review, it's actually because I think that it's either something I really think would be cool and fun to do, but also because I think you, my audience, actually might like to know about it. So like that AFRI 2400 that I just did, the P210 2400 watt power station, man, I love that thing. Fantastic. And so, yeah, when I had the opportunity to test it out, I didn't know about it then. I mean, they came to me, but I already had some power stations. I tested some, I purchased some myself. I like the idea of those little power stations, and I beat the crap out of that one. You don't get to see it all in the video because unfortunately you wouldn't watch a video that long, right? You're not going to watch a 4-hour video. So I have to try to condense all of that down and try to get the message across in that 16 to 20-minute video. But that thing, I mean, I'm running 30-year-old saws on it, right? These are energy hogs. I saw, and I didn't show it. I showed in my video once, one little clip when it hit 1,740 watts. Actually, I had it over 1,800 watts drawing with my table saw binding up on a piece of wood, and somehow I didn't get that on video. But that power station just took it in spades, and it was between 3 and 4 hours that I ran off that thing, all corded power tools plus a compressor. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. I'm running a bloody compressor, 150 pounds, 150 psi compressor, and using a brad nailer that I was way over nailing. I don't know if anybody watched that video, but I was like all over the place. I was like, there's probably 50 nails in that board, but I was just kind of having fun pushing that power station. But anyway, that's, as a YouTube channel, you can do that. But it is a bit of a challenge. And I will tell you the secret though, Tammy. There is a washing machine out there that I have at the cabin. Now, it might be too small for your needs, but it's something to think about. And what it has is it has a really high-speed spin cycle. And somebody in my latest video made a comment about the same kind of thing. Theirs is a bigger one though. But in essence, after you wash your clothes, you run it through that spin cycle on that thing, and it almost dries them in that spin cycle alone. It's amazing. And for an off-grid setup where power is a premium, right? And in my latest video, it's one of the messages I'm trying to say, right? We abuse power here like crazy. I can run 65 to 85 kilowatts a day, right? It's insane. But it's a big house, but none. I mean, even obviously right now I'm running a big light so that you guys can see me a little better. It's not so dark. Computers and cameras and all lights and all these kind of things. It uses a lot of power. So off grid is a big challenge. But that's what I would look at, is one of those spin dryers that by the time it's done, any regular dryer you need wouldn't need that much time to dry your clothes the rest of the way. It's amazing. But freeze dryer. Oh yeah. Well, I love the freeze dryer. The challenge with the freeze dryer is ours is in our garage because they are big and heavy. And I might have to think about trying to do a video for that for you. I'd have to think about how it would play on the channel, only because honestly, that's one of the things you have to think about. Does the audience really want to know? So now's your time, folks, to see if you agree with Tammy and drop a chat in here and let me know if you want to see a video on a freeze dryer and trying to run it off of a power station or solar power or something. I might try that, but I doubt it would do it because, you're talking 24, 25 hours. And the other thing, which I was going to say, is ours is in our garage. And in the summer, we live in the desert, and central Washington is desert, believe it or not. Easy 100 degrees constantly in July. And it's too hot out there to run that freeze dryer out there, really. I mean, anything above about 80 degrees is too hot. So now that we've got temperatures back down again, I could absolutely do it. I could do maybe a batch of milk, because I can put like whole milk in there and freeze dry it, turn it into powdered milk. And I love that, right? To do with eggs. Eggs is one of my favorite things to do, because up at the cabin, I like to have freeze dried eggs, because, you think about it, you can't, in the wintertime, you can't leave canned goods up there. You can't leave liquid stuff up there because I'm not living there full time, and it would just freeze and crack and break. So I like to have freeze dried food up at the cabin for survival purposes, right? I mean, you can imagine you get up there, you're 3 or 4 feet of snow, big dump comes in, something happens, you can't get out right away, you're stuck. And if you just brought the food that you had for the weekend, you'd be in trouble. But we keep a lot of dried goods up there for that reason, right? It's survival. But with the freeze dried eggs, it's awesome, because if you're down to like your last 2 eggs and you got, a handful of people to feed, you just pull out your freeze dried eggs and add that into your regular eggs and a little bit of water. And guess what? You've got some great scrambled eggs. And believe it or not, they make awesome pancakes. I do pancakes. I make my own. Look, I make everything myself. You're probably getting that message now, right? I make my own instant pancake mix. Don't buy it in the store. That stuff's crap. Make your own. It's better. And I took the recipe from the Joy of Cooking. So if you're not familiar with the Joy of Cooking and you want to do your own cooking, that's a cookbook everybody should have, in my opinion. It was originally written before the 1930s by Irma Rombauer, I think her name was, and it included how to preserve game, how to butcher game, all kinds of stuff, right? And so I took their pancake recipe, and all I did is I replaced all of the wet ingredients with freeze-dried ingredients, with one exception, and that is for the eggs. I like to use freeze-dried scrambled eggs, right? Like, you can get them from Rainy Day Foods, or you can get them at Walmart, right? They've got them in the there's an aisle in every Walmart superstore, and I'm not a big fan of Walmart, frankly, but they do have like a prepper section, and it's got like bulk storage foods, and they've got the number 10 cans of scrambled eggs. Well, if you take those scrambled eggs and add that to your dry pancake mix, perfect, guaranteed, as good as any homemade pancake. You cannot buy store-bought, instant pancake mix that will be as good as that. I'll tell you that right now. Straight up. Hey, Arrowhead. Sorry, buddy. Good to see you, though. Cheers. Does it taste different when you add water? When you add water, do you mean to the eggs? No. Or the milk, or no. No, the freeze dryer is amazing. It preserves something like 99% of the nutrients and flavors and everything. The only challenge I would say with the freeze dryer, once you get one, is meat. You have to realize two things. Once, when you freeze dry the meat, it will take longer to reabsorb the moisture than other things. So, for example, if you wanted to do like a stroganoff, which we've done, everything else will be mushed before the meat's ready. So you want to do them separate. Do the meat separate, do the noodles and the gravies and all those kind of things separate, and then you can rehydrate the meat first, put it in water in the fridge overnight or whatever, and then the next day heat it all up together in water, and you'll be fine. But that's one of the biggest things. And the other thing is to learn to measure. So what we've taken to doing is we will measure each tray, weigh them, so that, if a tray weighs 1 pound, when you pull it out of the freeze dryer, if it weighs, a quarter of a pound, you know that you need to add 3/4 of a pound of moisture back into the food in order to get it rehydrated properly. Now, other than that, they're really simple. Yeah, absolutely. All right, where are we at, folks? Well, I think we're about down. We're down to our last 4 people here. I think all the talk of freeze drying and making soap and bread and everything else chased everybody away. Who else is here? There's a few of you left. I think we'll probably get going, but Tom and Tammy, I think you're damn near in my hometown, I think, almost. And I have another YouTube friend that's down there that I talked to him quite a bit. And one of these days we're going to get together. He's going to come up here. I'm going to go down there. We're absolutely going to get together. So I think it would be fun because you guys are in the same area. He's in Rogue River. So I'm pretty sure you're in that same region between Roseburg and Klamath Falls somewhere, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you're down there. If you are, then maybe if I actually manage to make a trip that way, we'll have to get together and, maybe we do a live together or do some video together. I think that'd be a lot of fun. Maybe we'll get Michael to come out too. Who knows? Why not? And you got a sawmill. I mean, that's what I cut my teeth on here on YouTube, was actually with my sawmill and my tractor. So, but anyway, folks, last chance. Any other questions? Anything else you want to know? I'm going to give you this last time to throw it out there. It's an open table. So, let me see what else. See if make sure I didn't miss anybody here before I get going here. I think we've seen all the questions that have come out. So Tammy, you'll have to send me that soap recipe. I may have to try it. Tom's got me on Facebook, so he can definitely send it to me there. And again, if you want anything else, any recipes or anything I've got, I will share them. Obviously, Facebook's easy to do, but Yeah, and if you guys got any ideas of any videos you want to see, drop a line, let me know. We used to live in the high desert. Yeah, but you guys were back east too, and then you came out here. So if you used to live in the high desert, you must mean in eastern Oregon then, but you're not there now. I think you're down near my hometown. But tell Tom to tell me on face crack. All right, guys, I'm going to call it a night. Go down and see what the wife's up to. So y'all have a great night. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. It was fun. Talk to y'all later.